listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Okay, it's the GM Shuffle, the big guy Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher as we welcome you in a Monday edition. Michael, we should start. We talk so much about coaching, and I do think it's like a culture shift. I'll put it that way. So LA blew a 21-point lead last night here in Los Angeles. Burrow throws 3 touchdowns, but they beat the Bengals 34-27, and it's Harbaugh. I mean, it is. It's a culture shift. A lot going on with the Chargers here.
Well, we saw the Chargers, 2 years ago, get behind, get a huge lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then gave up the lead and melted like an egg on a hot summer day, right? I mean, they just went away. Whereas this team, with Jim, they've got such resilience, such mental toughness. But I thought last night was a really good example of a team that really needs to play a certain style. The Bengals, when they're behind, they're not really. They can play catch up. And because it just allows them to throw the ball in every single down. But what it also demonstrated was their inability to ever control a game, right? No matter what the lead is with the Bengals, they're never in control because they have no physicality up front. And their head coach, he just calls plays. He doesn't ever play complimentary football. I mean, it would be he would not have been on the team flying home to Cincinnati if Al Davis was the owner, because with 1:25 to go, he gets the ball back. His defense gets a critical stop in the fourth quarter. And, Burrow runs for a first down, which starts the clock. Now he's got a chance, and he throws 3 incomplete passes, and the Chargers have the ball back with 55 seconds. Like, you can blame this on your defense. You could say we should have stopped them, but he never manages the game in the right way. He's just a play caller. And I think this game was a perfect indication of the Bengals are really good. They're an ABA team. That's what they are. They're an ABA team. They can play up-tempo. They can play. If they're behind, it's no big deal. If they're in front, they're going to keep trying. It's not a big deal. They're going to play that. But when they're in the middle of the ring or on the ropes, they're just not a good enough team because they have no physicality to their football team. They can't run it. They're a nickel team that's best when they're playing. Like, I didn't think they were out of the game last night when they were down because that's who they are. They want to play like that.
No, you nailed it. Never felt like they. By the way, Burrow has 27 touchdowns, 4 picks, and the Bengals are 4-7. So, right. I mean, just like it's unreal. Another 3 touchdown performance by him in a loss.
Right. And again, if Mike Tomlin were coaching the Bengals, what would their record be? If Bill Belichick were coaching the record, but Mike Vrabel, but they have Zach Taylor, who, hides behind, he's going to play great play caller, all this. I bet Lou Anarumo just goes crazy because he knows he can't get his defense to be good enough because there's not enough physicality in the team. Look, we keep harping on this, and it's true. I mean, Herbert, what Harbaugh's done for Herbert cannot be underscored. And I don't think this team is as talented as they were when Staley was coaching sometimes, but they're a better team because they're fundamentally sound. They play really good defense. They tackle really well. They do all the things that a good coach makes his team do. And you can't underestimate great coaching. Look, there's 9 teams in the National Football League today as we sit here that have 3 wins or less. There is such disparity in this league. And I thought this weekend, Patrick, watching the games, I felt like this was exactly the wrong place. The bottom of the league is so bad because we have gone through this whole, let's not work too hard era. Let's go to Dairy Queen after the game. Let's take it easy on the players. Let's just all the kindness and niceness when championship teams do the things like your Lions do that are hard to be a champion. And, we talk about poor Joe Burrow. I mean, look, Dan Marino had the winningest coach of all time coaching him. And he went to 1 Super Bowl in '84. And they never, and went 5 years without even making the playoffs one time with Don Shula as his head coach. So when you have this great offense, if you don't have a head coach who's going to bring it back to defense, right? I mean, look at Bo Nix yesterday. I mean, their defense is outstanding in Denver, which allows Bo Nix to be a good player. Like, at some point, when are we going to understand that defense wins games and the toughness wins games? And Cincinnati's never going to get that. They won't fire Zach Taylor. He'll stay there because they'll make an excuse somewhere along the line, and it's comical.
Yeah, 34-27. By the way, tonight, Texans, Cowboys. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit here on the GM Shuffle. I was thinking about you last night watching that game because Harbaugh has completely transformed what that organization is, and there was a disparity. You had probably the more talented roster in Cincy, but Chargers win the game.
And I read somewhere, I don't know who reported it on Twitter, but somebody said that there's a lot of owners that are regretting not hiring Harbaugh. Like, why would anybody have doubted that Harbaugh was going to win at the Chargers? Like, why did anybody doubt that? Like, to me, it was a slam dunk. You know, when I was in Cleveland, there was talk. We tried to. I tried to. He wouldn't come. He would not come. I tried to see if we could trade for him. He wouldn't come. Some people have revisionist history of actually what happened, but there were some people that didn't think he was a good coach in the building, and that he was hard to get along with. Well, yeah, he is hard to get along with because he wants to do things the right way. This whole notion about, well, you got to, they're hard to get along with. You tell me somebody who's great that's not hard to get along with. You think Parcells was a walk in the park? Yeah, of course. Zach Taylor's wonderful to get along with. He's easy to get along with because he doesn't demand anything from anybody, right? So, like, great coaches are hard to get along with because they have a standard that they're trying to rise to get the people to go to them. It's about leadership. We have to get people to play to the level. And I think that's ridiculous. But can you imagine if you're Mark Davis and you picked Antonio Pierce as your next head coach because Max Crosby and Devontae Adams wanted him? And meanwhile, you had Harbaugh, you gave him his first head coaching job. You gave him his head first coaching job. He was in the building. He sees himself as a Raider. There would have been nobody more excited to be a Raider than Jim Harbaugh. All it would have taken was somebody with common sense in the building to say, hey, why don't we just get the best coach that's out there? We're going to pay whoever we're going to pay. Meanwhile, he goes to your competitors. And now you're stuck with Antonio Pierce, who's making notes on the sideline like that really matters. Come on. I don't know why anybody doubted it. David Tepper didn't even interview him. You got the best coach. It's like the same thing with Belichick. You got the best coach in the league, and people aren't even interviewing him. This is what shows you how fucked up so many of these teams are. They can't think for themselves.
Harbaugh's out there. Like, the best part is you could see there's a genuine relationship that he has with Herbert. And they're running the football. So Herbert's stats, which he's been playing incredibly, but, before the game, he's catching the ball for him. He's chucking it back to him. Like, it doesn't look like a guy that's hard to get along with. It looks like a perfect hire to me. I don't know.
He's hard to get along with when you look. The last time he was in San Francisco, Trent Baalke was his general manager. I interviewed for the job, and Baalke got it over me. He wanted me to get the job. They picked Baalke because they wanted somebody who was going to voice their opinion. Baalke got the job. He was already there. It was probably one of the most disappointing playing. I went out and interviewed for the job, and by the time I landed back home, they already had given the job to Baalke. So I was a formality interview. But the reality of it is they didn't want they wanted somebody who was going to challenge Jim. Obviously, they don't know who I am because I don't mind challenging it. To me, it makes a better conversation. But to me, the reason he left San Francisco was because of Baalke, because Baalke had his vision of how he wanted to run the team. Now Baalke's down in Jacksonville. I thought one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of yesterday was when it came out on Pro Football Talk on the Sunday pregame show, whatever the hell they call that, Football Night in America, where they said Baalke could be safe because he'll be a partnership with Belichick. Seriously? Does anybody do any homework on this? Like, you just throw shit out like that? Like, do some homework, I don't think Bill's going to want to dictate who he brings with him, but I think Bill's going to want to make sure he's got people that he's not going to have to fight when he walks in the building, or else you're not getting him to walk in the building. And that relationship, I don't think would ever succeed, frankly. So, it's just comical how people report stuff because you know why you're reporting that? Because obviously that's the news that they want to come out of Jacksonville. It's the same thing that happened when we saw the beginning of the year when Shah Khan said, this is the greatest team in the history of Jacksonville Jaguars. Where do you think he got that from? Where do you think he got that idea from? You think he thought about it? No, somebody said, this is your best team. Yeah, of course. Of course. It's like people are so stupid. And then to put that report out there come on. I'm not saying Bill's going to go in there, but that Balky is he's his own guy. He's got his own program. He wants to run it. He wants to be the coach too. That ain't going to work when he got somebody as strong as Bill, especially when they've never worked together. They were at the Jets, I think. And I just look, I'm not going to speak for Bill, but just from what I know that ain't going to happen.
As we do, the podcast is Dougie. Now, he does have a statue in Philly. Is he still employed in Jacksonville? Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
fair.
I guess he still is. He could be fired in that. I mean, look, did you see his interview yesterday after the game, Patrick, after your Lions to
It's not great. It's the vibes.
I mean, if they could have interviewed Custard after his last stand, it would have looked like that, right? If Custard would have survived on his last stand, that's what it would have been. He would have said, "Well, whatever the government wants to do with me," I mean, that's what it would have looked like. I mean, there's no chance. I mean, he was like, put him out of his misery, like put him out of his fire him. He's done. He's not going to – it's over with. He knows it's over. The team knows it's – when you give up 50 – look, I'm not saying Detroit's not a good team because what I admire about Detroit is they play to a standard. They don't play to their opponent. That's a huge thing that has to happen with every good team. You play to a standard. You don't play to the opponent, right? But when you see a team give up 52 points and basically, just lackluster the whole time, I mean, how do you go back to Mac Jones? He's thrown for less than 150 yards 2 weeks in a row. And so, I mean, to me, they got to put Doug out of his misery, whether they do it today or tomorrow. But at some point, it has to, or Doug's going to fire Ryan Nielsen. Like, that's really going to change. Like, the firing the defensive coach is going to help.
The Lions break team marks for margin of victory, total yards, and total first downs. I'm just going to say this. They're 9-1. I do believe it's one of the great offenses in 100 years of football. And I think it's only going to get better. I think it's only going to get better.
I'm going to talk about that as it relates to the Eagles. So I was talking to a coach in the league before we started, and he had some interesting comments on that.
Okay, let's talk about the Lions 52-6. Also, the Packers with a blocked field goal to end it 20-19. And we have to talk about the Ravens and Steelers, and Tomlin continues just to get it done with Pittsburgh. We continue. Good start to GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We're back.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle, presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher, again, GM Shuffle. So I'm looking for themes coming out of it. We talked about Sunday night. The Lions dominate. I know you wanted to follow up there. Their offense, I'm telling you, it is. And the Jags, they're 2-9. Dougie P's about to get fired, but the Lions are 9-1. And Michael, the offense is getting better. Started slowly, but they had 38 first downs. They had 645 total yards. This is a juggernaut right now.
Yeah, I was talking to a coach in the league, coaches defense coordinator in the league, and he has played both of them. And he said, like, there's no comparison between the Lions and the Eagles. He said the Eagles have tendencies. They're easy to read. You could get them now. They're good. They have a lot of talented players. He wasn't overly in love with Joystick's offensive vernacular. But this Lions team, he was, and he really feels like, look, and you could see it. I mean, to me, the beautiful thing about the Lions that I like and appreciate as someone who values leadership and team building is the Lions' ability to reach to a standard of their own, not to the level of their opponent. They didn't play well last week down in Houston. They knew it. They won the game, but they moved on. I think Minnesota's the same way. Minnesota didn't play well in Jacksonville. They go into Tennessee. They're a 6-point favorite, and they cover that number easily. Same thing with the Lions. There was a standard of performance that they needed to reach, and credit Campbell for this, and credit their players. The chemistry of their team is unique. It really is. And so, look, they're going to have to come off the Alex Anzalone injury. He broke his forearm. Yep. I'm sure they'll find somebody else to come in there. But this team is two together. It's we, not I. And the we, celebrates the win. When you can dominate a professional team like that, as badly as that, especially one that's supposed to be the most talented team in the history of Jaguar football, What's that tell you about your team?
Well, the Fords brought in a guy that was running Ford, as you know, and then they brought Spielman in as a consultant. And Spielman said, Campbell's the hire, and then we also need this guy from L.A., Brad Holmes. And I said at the time, disaster. Michael, I couldn't have been more wrong. This is one of the more impressive builds of an organization and run of an organization by Campbell. It's fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and it's just not the player acquisitions too, right? I mean, he hires Anthony Lynn to be his offensive coordinator, but he becomes a head coach and he realizes that's the wrong decision. During his first year, he takes away Anthony Lynn's play calling, and then he finds enough to go with Ben Johnson, and he has Ben Johnson on the staff. He's got, he part of the job of a head coach is to pick good coaches, but then evaluate the coaches. It's one of Steichen's biggest problems in Jacksonville. Are we sure he's picked the right coaches to coach defense? Are we sure he's listening to the right people? I think part of being a head coach is you got to coach the coaches. You got to make the coach. Everybody talks about we got to get the players to play better. No, we got to get the coaches to coach better too. It's the same thing. It goes both ways. And I think, to me, I wasn't in favor of it, but what I think they did a good job of is they knew who Campbell was. I think they wanted to hire, before they hired Patricia, they wanted to hire Vrabel. And I think that the GM at the time wanted Patricia. And I think that caused some consternation in the building. And therefore, they didn't get Vrabel, and they knew Vrabel was a good coach. And Campbell is the kind of the same mold and the same style as Vrabel. And I think that when they had a chance to hire him, he came with Parcells. But again, Campbell listens to good people. He listens to Parcells. He was trained by Sean Payton. He's got some lineage. We wrote a column today on the Daily Coach about anomalies, about how this search for the next Sean McVay. Sean McVay's an anomaly. I mean, Zach Taylor's not the next Sean McVay, right? Matt LaFleur's not the next Sean McVay. I mean, when Sean McVay needs to make coaching changes, he makes them. Where LaFleur had to make a coaching change, he had to twist his arm and to get away from Joe Barry and make that hire. That was a hard thing for him to do. But to me, I think to me, when you're dealing with something that's unique, whether it's a horse like Secretariat or whether it's a coach like Shaw, they're not another one. Millie used to tell me all the time, you got to stop looking for the next Belichick. They don't exist. That kind of coach it's once in a lifetime. And so I think what Detroit did a nice job of is finding somebody that resembled what Vrabel was, that was an ex-player, that had some toughness, that understood how to manage a game and get his team ready to play. And I credit them for it. And look, when they took Brad Holmes and he was a college guy, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about the Spielman hire because I felt like you have too many people dangling outside the coach. But I think Campbell's brought it all together really well. It's funny. We had Eric Musselman on the Daily Coach podcast last week. We have our Daily Coach community, which is by invitation only. And then we have hosts of people that come in and talk to them. And then we keep it online and you can listen to it. And he had a great point. And I don't understand why this is so hard, but he talked about when he was a young assistant coach and he was just starting out and he got a job working for some AAU or something where Hubie Brown was the head coach. And Hubie didn't know Musselman and Musselman didn't know Hubie. But Hubie said to Musselman, here's what I want in a small forward. I want somebody who can shoot and somebody who can rebound. I want somebody who can score. I've had Bernard King, and I've had this. This is what I want. And I want this in a shooting guard. I want this in a point guard. I want that. And when Musselman came back, well, I found a shooting guard that could do. No, you didn't hear what I said. This is the three things they have to have for me to make it. And I think most teams miss this. I think it's the lost art of team building is when you can't sit down and define what you want at every single position. It's the Giants invented this and they've gone away from it. Like now they're going to start Tommy DeVito quarterback. He stands for nothing that they would want. Tommy DeVito and Phil Simms in the same room at the same time. Are you kidding me? Come on. It's ridiculous. But I think that's what's lost in a lot of this where the Lions have been able to do that. You can clearly see that Campbell brought a plan.
You nailed it. I mean, look, he was 32 when the Rams hired him. He's anomalous. You can go to the Daily Coach and read that article. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. I mean, you're not going to find another McVay. They don't exist. He's very special. He beats the Patriots yesterday. Let's circle back to what you were just talking about, though. And you mentioned Steichen. So Anthony Richardson, 2 games off, returns, 70-yard touchdown drive to beat the Jets. The Jets are toast, and a big win for the Colts here, Michael.
I went back and watched that game. I mean, Richardson played as well as I've seen him play. It looked like the quarterback that you and I watched against Utah. He was accurate with the football. He had his missed throws. I'm not sure the offense that Shane's running is sustainable. If you're going to run quarterback sweep and and have this guy lower his shoulder and think he's going to live life on. But look, I think it was. I think the Jets are just what we didn't understand, and you do shows that are 5 days a week too. We didn't understand why anybody was betting the Jets. Why not?
They're bet every week. They're bet every week. It's hilarious.
Explain it. I don't understand it. The Jets aren't even good on. I mean, Sauce Gardner's supposed to be a shutdown corner, and Josh Downs owned him. I mean, he abused him in the game. And of course, Joe Douglas is the greatest general manager, has more talent than anybody. I mean, come on, give me a break. They have and Woody Johnson, say what you want about Bobby Saleh, but they were at least more competitive with Bobby. They're not even competitive now.
Well, they're not.
I mean, where do the Jets go? Where do the Jets go from here? Rodgers says he wants to come back. I think they owe him $50 million. You got to bring him back. Where are you going with that? Like, where are we going with this one? You're going to clean the building out. There's no way they didn't extend Douglas's contract. You're going to get a new GM, which will be somebody from the league office. Whoever the league office tells Woody to hire, that's who he's going to hire. Woody's obviously, I don't think he's in Trump's cabinet yet. I haven't seen him get appointed to that.
Is he in Ireland yet? Is he in Dublin?
No, I haven't seen that. I don't know if they name ambassadors this early. I mean, I put my name in for the ambassador to Italy, but I don't think that's going to come through. But I mean, where do the Jets go? I mean, everybody's talking about the Giants. They're broken. The Jets are broken. We suck in New York football, Chicago football. Think about that. 2 of the major markets, and we have not good teams. Chicago is better than obviously the New York markets, but God dang, the league is better. I'll say this again. The league's better when the Raiders are good and the New York teams are good.
Michael, the New York football teams are a combined 5-16. It's not good.
It's unbelievable.
It's not great. Daniel Jones just benched. No quarterback with the Giants. Aaron Rodgers is 42.
Before we go to break, here's what I'm talking about. Now, I put this on my Instagram account. I mean, Joe Shane's sitting there smiling when John Mara says, "I'd hate to think that I'm not going to sleep if he signs with the Giants." And Joe Shane's smiling like, who cares if he signs with the Eagles? I don't care. He's not any good. He's a running back. We'll get somebody better. He's smiling. All right, so now let's play this forward. You said you didn't have enough money. You did not have enough money to sign Saquon, but you gave $5 million to Drew Lock. You gave $5 million to Drew Lock, right? If you took that $5 million on what you offered Saquon and gave it to Saquon, he would have signed with you. No question. He wanted to be a Giant. I disagree that he didn't want to play. He wanted to be a Giant. But you made choices. You gave $5 million to Drew Lock. You gave $1 million more to Jermaine Illuminor. You gave more money to Van Roten, right? You paid Runyon this ridiculous number. You see, everybody says, well, can't pay. No, you make choices when it comes to the salary cap. And now we come full throttle, and no one other than me is going to say, why would you give Drew Lock $5 million if he can't be the starter when you had Tommy DeVito on your team already? Like, if you could have saved that $5 million and given it to Barkley, wouldn't you be a better team?
Misallocation of funds. It doesn't feel prudent to give Lock $5 million. That's all. I agree. 2-8 for the Giants and 3-8 for the Jets. Before we go to break, because we're going to come back and talk about the Chiefs, they suffered their first loss. Are they really going to run it back with Rodgers next year? Aaron Rodgers threw for like 180 yards last night. He is literally not the same player anymore. So they're just going to run it back.
That's not even close. They have to. I think they owe him $50 million. But where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? And here's the other thing. I don't know if Woody knows this, but they build a defense that has to play a certain style. I mean, that's who they are. You got to, you revamp that thing. You bring Mike Vrabel, and it's going to be a different style of defense. Belichick wouldn't go there, but you bring Belichick, different style.
Yep. No, 100%. So the Chiefs 9-1, the Bills 9-2. If you take a look at the market right now, Josh Allen, he's a Hall of Famer. He is your favorite to win the MVP this year. The Buffalo Bills do cover the 2.5. We'll come back and discuss that one. here on the GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Maher.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Hey, don't let that man get hot. I'm seeing Michael Lombardi goes 3-0 for his VSiN Pro Picks. GM Shuffle as we welcome you back. A hot week. You know what? You were saying it during the break, and props to Joel Embiid, who is doubtful tonight for his Sixers. You don't listen. Yeah, he's okay. You were saying it during the break, because we've been complaining about the product. The football yesterday was kind of good. Like, there was the Seahawks 49ers was an exciting game. The Packers Bears was an exciting game. Like, the Chiefs Bills was an exciting game. Let's go Packers Bears. 20-19, a block field goal as time expires gives the Packers their 11th win in a row over the Bears, but a competitive, kind of good football game.
Yeah. Well, what I think the Bears did was smart. I think Thomas Brown, the new offensive coordinator, he went to a spacing three-step drop game. I mean, it was really just rhythm throws, get the ball out of his hand, force him to throw the ball. And the Packers really didn't have an answer. I mean, I'm getting texts from Big Daddy like, oh, my God, it's just annoying as shit. He's sending me texts complaining about everything of the man on the moon. You know, we're the worst defense in football, yada, yada, yada. Jai Alexander doesn't play. You know, he wants to blame Goot for every bad. I mean, it's such a classic thing. Like, one bad draft pick makes the whole draft bad, right?
Yes.
Never gives any credit to the good players. But, you know, anyway. So I thought that the Bears did as good as they could do. I think you have to question, to me, this idea. And yesterday, for as good as football was, we saw kickers start to come back to life. I mean, Justin Tucker misses too. First time.
Tucker's not the same human being. What's happening with Justin Tucker?
Evan McPherson missed 2 last night. I mean, he missed a bunch of them last night.
But the Browns kicker missed the 27-yarder. I mean, not that
Patrick, I'm watching. First of all, I got to complain about. I got the 4-box going on the big screen, and I had the Bears game on the other TV just so I listened to Brady, and I have the 4, and I couldn't get the Jacksonville when that got out of hand. I couldn't get the Detroit game off the 4-box. Like, it was in everything because if you put on the YouTube channel, if you put one game on live and you have one in the 4-box, it's not synced. You're ahead of each other, right?
Right.
So that becomes a problem. And so I couldn't get that goddamn Detroit game out of there. I just couldn't get it. It was showing up everywhere, and I wanted to get it out of there. But this Bears game, I mean, I thought that Eberflus did exactly same what Zach Taylor did. You're in that betwixt and between area where it's a 46-yarder, you can make it, but you need to get closer. You want to be in makeable field goal range, not in field goal attempt range. But it was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. On the quadrant to the top, I've got the Browns and the Saints, and they have the ball with 7 seconds to go. The ball's on the 7-yard line, and they're going to get ready to kick a field goal. And then I have below it, I have the Rams and the Patriots. Same situation. The Rams have the ball up 14-0, up 14-10 with 7 seconds to go. And I turn around, and the next thing I know, both teams are jogging up the field, and those kickers both missed those kicks.
I know.
They both missed those kicks. It was brutal at the same time.
I know. It's like early in the year, kickers couldn't miss from 55. Now kickers can't hit from 30. It's been such an inverse situation. And like we saw it yesterday, Justin Tucker, I don't know what's happened. He's not the same player. But anyway, the Packers, 29-19, they moved to 7-3. The Bears fall to 4-6. Kind of ho-hum for Love. The stats weren't great, but I did think the Bears offense looked crisper with the new play caller. I thought Caleb looked more comfortable.
Right, but here's what's going to happen now. They declared how they want to play. I thought the Packers were really late to adjust to the rhythm passing game. I thought the Packers needed to do more disruption in their game plan to really get him off. And look, let's face it, they tried. He ran 9 times for 70 yards. I mean, Williams played more under control than I've seen him play. He didn't try to carry the team, but he enhanced the team. I thought this was his best game as a pro. And it's something to build moving forward as you play Minnesota. But now you're going to get Brian Flores, and he's going to come after you a little bit more with a better front. and more speed on defense. Now, Minnesota can't cover anybody. I mean, they gave up a 99-yard touchdown pass yesterday. They got them 3rd and 10 backed up. Will Levis, they let him off the hook. But Minnesota's problems are at corner. They can't cover. But to me, which will be a problem against the Packers couldn't cover either. But I thought the Packers, they played 36 minutes of defense. I mean, that's a long time to be out there on the field. And I felt like LaFleur got too heavy run. I thought he should have let them throw it a little bit more. A bad interception. And then, of course, naturally, he turns down points in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
and even though
when he went for it on fourth. Oh, no. You're right. He should have kicked it.
I mean, he turned.
Totally agree.
And see, like, to me, where I have a problem is, okay, San Francisco's playing Seattle, right? And they're up 17-13. San Francisco's is the first team since 2000 that have had 4-point or more leads in the 3 divisional games and lost all 3. And so they got the ball 17-13 to go with, I think, 4 minutes to go, and they can't run the clock out, right? Buffalo, Kansas City, right? They get the ball. Buffalo's trying to run the clock out. They got a very nebulous 2-point lead, and they go for it on 4th down. See, I think, to me, that's probably extending the lead to 5 there with Patrick Mahomes having 2 timeouts with over 2 minutes ain't going to do any good. I mean, it's the same thing with San Francisco. When San Francisco had a punt up 17-13, I said to myself that they're probably not going to win this game because they're tired. Nick Bosa was out of the game. They don't have enough defensive linemen to rush. You got to win the game with your offense at some point. So I'm a little bit, I'm not conservative there. Where I think LaFleur made a mistake was, why would you turn down the points when you knew you were going to get another possession?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he did get possession. He makes the huge play to Watson, and then he scrambles for the touchdown. Like, I think to me, if you're in that fourth quarter, you're collecting points. The outcome isn't going to be decided. Whereas San Francisco would have got one more first down, the outcome's decided. Buffalo got the touchdown, the outcome was decided, right? I think whereas the Jets went 4th and 2, they kicked the field goal, that outcome wasn't decided, right? That didn't really give them, they're playing to their defensive strength. Look, Indianapolis, 3 plays later, they were at the 5-yard line. I mean, so I think, to me, in the fourth quarter, you got to be a little bit careful. Like when Washington, we didn't talk about this, when Washington decided to go for it when they're down, when they're winning, when they're losing 12-10, like the game wasn't decided. There was another possession to the game. So if you go up 13-12, the worst you're going to be is down 20-13 if they go for a touchdown and kick the 2-point and get the 2-point, or you could be down 15-13, or you could be down 18-13. But when you don't get that, now you're down like Shane Steichen was 27-13, And so to me, that's when it becomes a real problem.
So I'm watching the Seahawks, kind of a stunning 20-17 win in San Francisco, both 5-5 now. And for some reason, I thought of Tommy Maddox. Hear me out. How many players have been literally dead and buried? You thought the career's over, and they came back to star. Geno Smith is doing that. Like, he is a very good football player now, but we had buried him, right? Remember, first round, whatever he was, and then, but kind of reinvented himself in Seattle, and he there's confidence as 11 plays, 80 yards, led by Geno Smith to win it in San Francisco.
And he had 2 rushes. I mean, I think San Francisco was dead, too. They had no rush. They had lost Nick Bosa earlier in the game to the oblique injury. And if they don't have him against Green Bay, I don't know how they beat Green Bay. They can't. They're not good enough up front. That's their problem. San Francisco's style of defense is to win with front 4. And they put all their money and resources into that, but all their money and resources are hurt. It's a problem, right? Leonard Floyd's a good player, not a great player. Gross Mattis is okay. I mean, they don't have enough talent. They don't have look, you can't run that San Francisco style of defense without a 3 technique. It's impossible. You just can't do it. You need a dominating inside player to go along with Bosa. They don't have that. It's not Malik Collins. It's not, so it's hard. And so when they didn't get that first down, it became a problem. And give Geno credit. And again, too, once you get tired and you don't have enough depth in your defensive line, all of a sudden a shitty offensive line looks a lot better.
Bosa goes out with the hip. He great player. It's almost like the Watt thing, where if he's on the field, he's a difference maker. But he goes out with the hip injury, and now you've got 2 teams 5-5 in division, Seahawks and 49ers.
Yeah, now they got to go back to Green Bay, right? And Seattle plays Arizona. It saved their season. I just think, to me, look, when you're the Super Bowl loser, it's always hard. But San Francisco's problems are, I think they're really slow on offense. They don't have enough explosiveness. Debo's not, I mean, Debo, whether he's injured or not, he's not the same player. I mean, he looks, even on those jet sweeps, he looks slow. There's no burst or acceleration out of him. I mean, Jennings, and then they didn't have Kittle yesterday. Then Jennings Jennings is their best outside receiver. And so, it's almost like Kyle's got to be perfect with every play call for them to be successful. And then I think the other thing is because Purdy doesn't have any uniqueness to his skill level in terms of a gun as an arm, or, he runs around really well, he needs a really good supporting cast. No one's going to deny that. And I'm not sure that supporting cast is the same level that we're used to seeing in San Francisco.
Well, you know what? I'm watching yesterday. I'm like, Purdy's not the problem. Purdy's not
right.
Like,
no, I agree.
We don't have he's fine. They just don't have speed. They don't have enough on offense. He's not the issue.
They look slow. They look slow. It's like when you watch the Colts play with Richardson at center, they look faster on offense. Yes, when you watch, to me, when you watch Sam Darnold at Minnesota, because of his arm, they seem like they can stretch the field. They have players to stretch. You don't feel like you're playing in a condensed box. When I watch San Francisco, I feel like I'm watching a team that's an Arena League team. They're playing in a small, tight area. And even Seattle, I mean, Geno can throw that ball anywhere on the field to anywhere, at any time, and they don't look as condensed. And so I think that's the biggest issue. I think that's one of the areas where when you watch San Francisco, they're not the same team. I mean, from where they are and the injuries, and it's hard. It's always a battle, man. It's a battle.
We should discuss what Sean Payton's doing with the Denver Broncos. They dominated the Falcons. We'll come back and discuss that one as well. 38-6, easily cover the 2. But we also have to focus. By the way, the Vikings moved to 8-2. The Titans fall to 2-8. The DJ, your boy, the Dolphins, pick up a win, 34-19 over. I mean, if Tom Brady doesn't come in and just say Antonio Pierce needs to go, we can come back and discuss that. I don't know what he's doing. The Browns off a bye were a disaster. But when we return, we have to talk about the Steelers and Ravens, which is, it was ugly. Stayed under the 48. 18-16. Steelers win, moved to 8-2. We'll come back, discuss that GM shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
About this, but we need to get the Cowboys off of prime time. That's not a broad time. It's just getting ugly without the quarterback as well. We'll talk about that to end the podcast here. But coaching matters. That's been a theme on the GM Shuffle, and I think Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing. The Steelers beats the Ravens. They were catching 3, 18-16. Ho-hum. Tomlin is 8-2, Michael.
Yeah, if I would have told you this summer they will get to 8 wins by November the 17th, you would have laughed at me. And if I would have told you they would win 2 games by kicking nothing but field goals, you would have laughed at me. But look, this game shouldn't have come down to the final moments. I don't know what Russell was thinking about when he threw that horrendous interception. I mean, that was as bad as it gets. But look, they're just they play 3-dimensional football. They play hard. They're physical. Everybody knows their role. They have a way of defending Lamar. That's no secret. They've been able to win. And these games are always tight, I don't know why anybody would take the Ravens and lay the points, because history tells us not to, right? These 3-point games, you've got to take the points. So I think if you're a Raven fan, you have to feel a lot better about how your defense held up in the game. Not that Pittsburgh's a great offense, but, you hold a team to 18 points and you have this high-flying offense, you should win the game. But more than anything, I mean, Baltimore's got to figure out a way to stop beating themselves. Lamar said it best after the game. They just beat themselves. Give up a lead to their shitty Raider team, lose the opening game to Kansas City, lose this one here. Could have easily lost. Look, let's face it, they could have easily lost to Cincinnati if Zach Taylor would have done something different than run the ball 3 times in the A-gap to try to 50-some-yard field goal.
Yeah, three turnovers for the Ravens, 12 penalties. So they kind of beat themselves. It's literally, I think Elliott said the dog is now 16-2-1 ATS over their last, what it is, 19.
It's amazing.
You put a blindfold on and you take the points. Specifically, if you're at home, the pick by Russ was weirdly bad, but all field goals and a win. It's almost like that's exactly what Tomlin wants out of that game. Boswell scores all the Steelers' points on 6 field goals. The Steelers, are they legit? I'll put it that way. Yeah. We know Watt. I think Watt is legitimately in the conversation for the best player in football, regardless, offense or defense.
Yes, I do too. Yeah, I think that, look, the Steelers are a legit because they're a hard team to play. You better bring your A game. Now, I think this week, as good as they played against the Ravens at home, this week in Cleveland will be a hard game for them. It'll be a hard game just because divisional matchup, got to go into Cleveland. They're always going to play in close games, and if you don't block them, which probably Cleveland, they create the turnover. That's how they're going to extend the game. But they're playing it so close to the vest, and I think Arthur Smith should be assistant coach of the year. He's done a wonderful job. Again, I'm going to keep asking the question. If they would have kept, if Arthur Smith stays in Atlanta and they give him Kirk Cousins, are they 6-5 now?
No, he's still a head coach in Atlanta. If he had,
Cousins. I mean,
I agree.
If he had Cousins, he'd still be the head coach. They haven't improved. Atlanta still sucks. If you think Atlanta's going to the Super Bowl and beating anybody, you're crazy. Give Sean Payton. Sean Payton just took him to the woodshed. Just took him to the woodshed yesterday.
Let's talk about that game. Quick. Let's talk about that one. Peyton's done a great job. He's in Atlanta. Screw him.
I was so happy to hear because I wanted to take Denver and he took Atlanta. I loved it. I was in love with Denver all week and I thought that was an easy play. And so he took it. He ended up 1-2 for the day. He got bailed out. Of course, the Raiders helped him out and didn't cover that number. But I think to me, Bo Nix is getting better every week. Every week.
He really is. He really played well. And Nix threw, Michael, 4 touchdowns. The important part for a rookie is he doesn't turn the ball over. No picks.
Yeah.
Efficient. That was, I don't know if the Broncos are more talented than the Falcons, but they dominated them. There's something about the structure, something about the coaching.
They're better on defense. And look, there's a reason you're paying Sean Payton all the money. There's a reason you're paying Sean McVay all the money. There's a reason you're paying Jim. They're really good coaches. And if you don't have somebody in that category, then you're going to have to build one like the Eagles are trying to build with Sirianni. Not that it could, not that he's a great coach, but they're trying to build him into a great coach, right? They're trying to do everything. We got Vic Fangio. We got Joystick. We're going to try to make him into a great coach. I don't know if they can or not, but some of these teams that do it, I was on a text chain yesterday and I was watching Steichen. Steichen calls plays like he's the kid, like he's playing against some kid in Thailand. I call him Thailand Shane. He doesn't care about what's going on in the game. He only cares about who he's playing. He's playing some kid in Thailand. At some point you got to run the game. That's the same thing what Zach Taylor does. He plays, you can call him Thailand Zach, right? He's playing some kid in some a computer game somewhere. Doesn't even know who the opponent is. It's horrendous. Campbell's a head coach, right? You got to get somebody who can understand how to play the game, how to match up to the game. And I think it's a lost art. I really do. But Sean had one interview, right? It's David Tepper barely brought it. David Tepper wouldn't hire him because he wants too much control and he's too hard to get along with. Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather win and have somebody hard to get along with, or would you rather lose and get along with everybody? You decide.
I think McDermott needed what happened yesterday in Buffalo. So let's talk about it, and we'll get to our awards here with Josh Allen. We've got the Week 11 awards, DraftKings crowning moment. Michael, I think it was huge for the Bills. Their schedule toughens up. They're going to win that division easily. So I think just from an emotional perspective, huge for the Bills and McDermott yesterday.
No question. And they got play from everybody, right? They got, they were able to run the ball 31 times in the game. They sprayed the ball around to all the receivers. Mac Hollins does as much for this team as anybody, blocking, catching big passes for him. Shakir, to me, is the new version of whether you call him Danny Amendola, whether you call him Julian Edelman, whether you call him Wes Welker. I mean, the guy's really good. Yeah, I know he only averaged 8.2 yards, but he's a converter of third downs. And look, Josh was really good. He only had 13 incompletions. I'll tell you what I will say after this game. Kansas City's tackle situation is shitty. I mean, and Andy Reid knows it. And it's going to limit what they do offensively, because if they go against really good outside rushers, it's a problem.
Yeah, he schemes them up. Mahomes and Reid are a good combination, because I'm watching that game. I'm like, they don't have the talent. But they stayed with them, and then the big run, and that's where we're going to go to our crowning moment. DraftKings, Josh Allen on that 4th down run, Michael.
Great play. But I really, to me, I felt like they had to go for it. I didn't disagree with the call, but I disagree with the 3rd down call. Like, I think 3rd down, put the ball in his hands, because then you can take it out, 4th down, where are we going? And to me, you had to get there. And look, I think Joe Brady's probably going to parlay this into a head coaching job, because he's done such a good job with balancing this team. They really have done a good job of balancing. They didn't have Kincaid yesterday, and Dawson Knox comes through with 4 catches for 40 yards. So I credit this Bills team. And look, here's the other thing. With the way the Bills played, the Chiefs can only run the ball 17 times, right? The Chiefs want to run the ball. They want to be a team that runs it, and they were, and still were very effective. They're 50% on 3rd down. They were 5 for 10 on 3rd down. But when they can't get that run game going, that puts too much pressure on their tackles. That tackle situation at left tackle and at right tackle, I know they paid Taylor. They're not good enough at tackle.
Let's run the awards. Fraud of the week. I think we talked about them. They were in Denver, right, Michael?
No, I mean, come on. I mean, I did the Super Bowl. Give me a break. This defense. I mean, Bo Nix had time to have a cup of coffee back there like yesterday. I mean, there was no way they were rushing. I think the Falcons. I mean, I don't think it's over. I think Tampa could still win this thing.
I agree. Totally agree. Palermo, best game plan. Seattle and San Francisco.
Well, I think you got to give it to Seattle. You got to give them off the bye week. They did a good job. They fixed their defense a little bit. I think you got to give them some praise. They got better. They cut their leading tackler, and they were able to come through. I think they did a wonderful job, and they won the game at the end. That was huge for them.
On the lamb. By the way,
we have 9 teams that should be on the.
By the way, the Browns were coming off a bye and got embarrassed in New Orleans.
I mean, the Browns are terrible. They're not as good as they were. I got to stop thinking their defense is going to get fixed, because they're not as good defensively in every statistical category as they were last year. And I'm making mistakes thinking they're going to stay in the game because their defense is going to hold them through. They're just not the same team defensively and offensively. I mean, you can't trust Jameis.
No, you certainly can't. So in the Jags. Best roster in the history of the organization, but not playing to that scheme, nerd.
Yeah, could you expect Bell? I mean, your boy Bell is the best. And look, he's the one nobody even talked about. I mean, he didn't pick Aiden Hutchinson, he picked Walker. Who would you rather have?
Oh, yeah. No. Great.
The Lions are lucky. The Lions are fortunate for all the greatness. They've got 2 players put in their lap in the front 7 of their 2 of their best players. Sewell and Hutchinson. They got 2 players to just put right in their lap. That they didn't have to think about turning the card in. They just turned the card in. And look, that's where to me, if you don't know now, you know, great teams play to a standard they set, not to the opponent. You know, there's the teams that play down to their opponents don't have a great locker room. Teams that play above their opponent have a great locker room. I felt that way in New England. We played Washington Sunday. I mean, we played Detroit. Even with Matthew Stafford, we killed them. I mean, it was like 38. The game was over at halftime because we were playing to a standard, and and didn't matter who the opponent was, because that's because Belichick demanded to play to a standard.
If you don't know, now you know. Detroit plays to their standard, not their opponent. Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I'm literally at a place where this Detroit is a Super Bowl team. I'm 46, yeah. Michael. This is literally
they are
the organization. They're a Super Bowl team. It's theirs to win.
They really are, and they're and they get better each week. Which is and look, one thing I think you always want to bet on is teams that win that don't play good. Minnesota didn't play good last week. They bounced back. That tells you the coach has got to the teams tuned in. It really does. Detroit didn't play well last week, but won. They come back and destroy it. Now they go and play Indianapolis, and they play Thailand Shane.
Thailand Shane is my favorite. Michael, I'll see you Thursday. GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Maher. We'll see you then.